If you are pregnant, listen up because there is an upcoming live pregnancy workshop available to help you prepare your body and pelvic floor for birth and beyond. We discuss ways to reduce risk of perineal tears and episiotomy. We learn how to reduce risk of pelvic floor trauma and, importantly, ways to support a strong postnatal recovery. This free workshop called Birth Strong is physio-created and designed to help you feel more confident and empowered about your upcoming childbirth experience. Head to fitnessmama.com/pregnancy workshop and the link is in the show notes. Once more, that's www.fitnessmama.com/pregnancy workshop, all one word. Can't wait to see you there. If you are pregnant or you've recently had a baby, this podcast is for you. I am your host, Kath Bequee, a physiotherapist working in women's health and mum of 3. Inside my online program, Fitness Mama, I just love helping support women to care for their bodies during pregnancy, prepare their bodies for birth, and support their after-birth recovery, helping them feel confident and strong inside out during this important stage of their lives. In this podcast, join me each week as we dive into all things pregnancy care, childbirth, and postnatal recovery, helping you through every step of the journey. It is absolutely possible to feel amazing and confident in our bodies during this motherhood journey, and I want that for you. Come and say hi to me on Instagram @fitnessmama, and let's dive into today's episode. Hello, welcome back to the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast. So today's episode, going to discuss why there are some people who should not be jumping on the pelvic floor exercise bandwagon. There is a viral trend sort of taking off on TikTok and Instagram. A lot of pelvic floor exercises out there, which is fantastic, but there are some women where these are not appropriate. So today's podcast episode, I want to discuss which subset of women perhaps shouldn't be doing pelvic floor exercises, even if it's for a certain period of time. But I'm also going to talk through what I consider to be gold standard for care when it comes to pelvic floor care from pregnancy through to postpartum. So how can we best support our pelvic floor muscles based on the knowledge and the research we have? And I do just want to make that, I guess, bit of a disclaimer. Our knowledge base is changing rapidly. We have got research developing, but it is still in its infantile stages. 50 years ago, no one really talked about pelvic floor exercises at all. Then people became aware of these muscles and Kegels, and everyone started wanting to strengthen their pelvic floor exercises. Perhaps about 10, 15 years ago, we started to realize it's not all about strengthening. We need to also be able to relax these muscles and release the muscle tension, which makes sense, right? If we had tension in our neck muscles all day long, for example, we would probably be giving ourselves a headache and neck pain. So we went from let's strengthen up all the pelvic floor muscles to now thinking, okay, we also need to relax the pelvic floor muscles. And now the way that it's going and with our knowledge base is that we're able to, and hopefully in the future with more certainty, we can identify subsets of women where traditional pelvic floor exercise strengthening might not actually be appropriate. So that's what we're going to discuss today. I'm a pelvic floor physio. I am very pro pelvic floor exercises, and on the whole, they're thought to help reduce risk of leaking, pelvic health issues, and we know that pregnancy and childbirth are big risk factors for pelvic health issues. And none of us want to be leaking when we're coughing or sneezing. None of us want to be wetting our pants when we're jumping on the trampoline with our kids. I'm sure everyone listening today wants to be able to confidently go for a run after they've had a baby, whether or not you're, a keen runner or you just want to be able to run across the road without fear of leaking. But in saying that, in order to best care for our pelvic floor muscles, we need some more information. We shouldn't necessarily all be doing pelvic floor exercises. So when you see the trend happening on TikTok and Instagram, just be aware that this might not be for you. And maybe you need more information to arm yourself with the knowledge and the power of how to best look after your muscles during this stage of pregnancy and postpartum. So first of all, let's talk through that smaller subset of women that perhaps you might want to be wary of diving straight into pelvic floor exercises without getting the appropriate pelvic floor assessment. And when I talk about a pelvic floor assessment, I recommend going to your local pelvic floor physiotherapist. So this is a physiotherapist who's trained in vaginal pelvic floor assessments. So this is an internal pelvic floor assessment. So it's not just any physiotherapist. They've had postgraduate training to do vaginal assessments. So if you can find your local pelvic floor physio, I'm going to talk through the gold standard in a little bit, but these are the things to be aware of. We want to be aware that we're actually doing the exercise, the technique correctly. There's actually some great research out there that it looked at a whole group of women and they thought they were doing the exercises, pelvic floor muscle exercise lift correctly, but there was a group of them who weren't doing a lift at all, or even they were actually doing the opposite. So they're pushing down, bearing down instead of lifting up. So the number one thing we want to be aware of if we're doing the exercise correctly. As I mentioned, the only way we can know this for certain is if we have a pelvic floor assessment. And that can either be done internally or through transabdominal ultrasound, but generally ultrasound's not done during pregnancy. Anyway, I digress. The other set of women who want to perhaps be careful, a bit more mindful of pelvic floor exercises are those that have overactive pelvic floor muscles. So these are muscles that have difficulty relaxing, releasing. Perhaps there might be a correlation with anxiety, depression, or they might be an athlete, so high activity levels. Maybe there's a history of pelvic pain, like endometriosis, like chronic pelvic pain. There's quite a few women who are potentially predisposed to overactive pelvic floor. So perhaps instead of exercising, maybe you need more down training techniques of the pelvic floor. You need to learn how to release and relax these muscles. Perhaps you need both strengthening and relaxing, but it's not all about strengthening. And I should just pop in that little group of women, if you've already got urinary issues, so let's say accidentally leaking, you've got the urgency, needing to rush to the toilet, any bowel symptoms, definitely you're another group of women where I would recommend let's tailor the pelvic floor exercises to your situation. Then postpartum, there are certain types of trauma to the pelvic floor where there is potentially some new research suggesting that we might have better benefit by resting these muscles instead of going gang-ho on strong pelvic floor exercises in the early postpartum period. Let's think of if you've got an Achilles tendon rupture. So you've got a rupture in your calf, or any muscle strain really, where it's like the muscles coming away from the bone. It is unlikely your rehab program is going to consist of strong strengthening exercises in the early post-injury phase. More often than not, I can guarantee you will need a period of rest. And I've said this for years on this podcast. If we've had, and we know that pelvic floor muscles stretch during birth. we know that everything's stretched. Abdominals have stretched. If you've had a vaginal birth, your pelvic floor stretched up to 300%. We want that natural recoil and natural recovery to occur as much as possible. And it's not necessarily a time where we want to be doing heaps and heaps of pelvic floor exercises. And the research, I suggest, just takes that one step further, which I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but there's certain pelvic floor trauma where we need to do a vaginal assessment and to actually work out if this has occurred in your body and to allow us to appropriately provide an exercise program tailored for you. So, my tips, I know I'm speaking a bit of jargon, and look, not everyone will agree with this, but based off my clinical experience and having helped hundreds, I guess if not thousands of women, like with my program, recover postpartum, this is what my gold standard would be. This is what I would want to do if I was back pregnant with my first bubs, which is now nearly 13 years ago. But this is with the benefit of hindsight. There's a lot of research that's happened in that 12, 13 years, but this is what I would have gone and done for myself. So, pregnancy. If you're pregnant listening to this, one of the best things you can be doing for your pelvic floor is to exercise. Actually move your body, feel strong. And I'm not talking about pelvic floor exercises. I'm talking about whole body exercises. We know that women who exercise during pregnancy actually have better postnatal pelvic floor outcomes. So that is really exciting. So if there's any issues that are stopping you from exercising, let's say you've got pelvic girdle pain, any aches and pains, you're feeling unwell, let's see if we can work with these. Like, let's not let that be a reason to stop exercise. Let's actually modify the exercise so that you can still move your body in a way that helps you feel better and not depletes you further. Okay, the second part of this gold standard, Catherine Bequee's gold standard pelvic floor support during pregnancy and postpartum, it would be to have a 36-week check at that during pregnancy. So at 36 weeks, you can have a vaginal assessment. There's so much birth preparation that we can talk about. We can make sure you're lifting your pelvic floor muscles appropriately, and even more important potentially is making sure you've got that ability and that confidence to relax and release your pelvic floor muscles, because during birth, if you're having a vaginal birth, you want that birth canal to open and relax. It's not a time where we're wanting to zip it up, close it, lift it. It's that release of the muscle tension we're after. And this might be combined with perineal massage that we can teach in that 36-week checkup. Bit of an aside, if you don't have access to a local pelvic floor physio, I know a lot of people listening live rurally, regionally, perhaps there's financial issues. I do offer this support in my online program. Okay, the third part of this gold standard pelvic floor support would be, now this is a little bit of, I guess, of brackets around. This isn't totally necessary, but so many of my patients love to have a 2-week postpartum telehealth check-in. So this is at 2 weeks postpartum. We can discuss how the birth went. We can discuss, if there were anything to be mindful of when it comes to your pelvic floor recovery. We can discuss if there were any tears, any, like the length of the delivery, any concerns there. And then we can give you, like if they're instrumental delivery, if they're forceps, that's really good knowledge to give you a bit of support or guidance for exercise in general, but also pelvic floor, to get you through to our 6-week postnatal pelvic floor assessment. Because at that 6-week mark, that's when it would be gold standard again. And I know this is in the ideal world. I know, like, this isn't for everyone. Like, I totally get that this is not possible for everyone. But if it is possible, gold standard, that 6-week postpartum pelvic floor assessment, in France, they offer this to all women who've had a vaginal birth. And this is why I'm mentioning this. It would be so amazing. Like, this would be I'd love it if this could be offered in Australia. There's more and more. It's an exciting time in this world, in terms of the pelvic floor research world, because there's more and more support for this potentially. Just wouldn't it be amazing? Let's get pelvic floor assessments offered for all women at that 6-week postnatal check, because this is when we can really do a thorough pelvic floor assessment, work out, support you in that pelvic floor recovery. So for anyone who's like, what happens at that pelvic floor assessment? It's very involved. We talk about everything like aches and pains, mastitis, breastfeeding concerns. But in terms of the pelvic floor assessment, we would look to see if there's signs of prolapse. We would look to see what the muscle strength is like. We would look to see if there's any avulsion of the levator ani. So that's where if there's any if there's any muscle that's come away from the bone. And there's a few of those assessment measures that can really help to guide what your pelvic floor training program should be. And on top of that, there's the whole exercise rehab side of things to discuss. So there's a lot to discuss at that 6-week postnatal pelvic floor assessment, not just pelvic floor recovery, but your whole body recovery. We look at diastasis, your abdominal muscle separation, how to help you feel strong. Let's provide you with a structured return to exercise plan to help you get back to doing what you want, like whatever those goals might be, running a marathon, jumping on the trampoline with your kids, whatever it might be. Let's give you a bit of a goal and a structured return to exercise plan. So I guess the take homes from this podcast episode: if in doubt, check it out. If you're in doubt, come and send me a message on Instagram at kathbaqui.physio. I can either help to point you in the right direction, recommend a local pelvic floor physio to you. I myself have recommenced clinical work. I've had a bit of a hiatus for a few months, but I'm at a new clinic. So it's based in Melbourne. So if you are based in Melbourne, you can look me up. But I can help to point you in the right direction no matter where you are in Australia or the world. Because at the end of the day, we all want to feel confident with our recovery. You want to feel strong in recovery. And there's one thing I know is that we can really help support you to recover well after having a baby, to feel strong again, to prepare your body for future births and future like menopause down the track. There is so much that's on your doorstep. For women, we have it good. We have all the pregnancies, all the births, and we've got menopause, but there's so much we can do to bolster our body to give us the best chance of achieving what we want, I guess, at the end of the day. So just let's not suffer in silence. Let's not ignore any symptoms. Let's not put off doing anything. Now I'm rambling. So I'm going to let you go. I'm going to get back to doing pelvic floor exercises, but hopefully after listening to this episode, if you're seeing these exercises, on social media, just be aware, is this for me? Or do I need to determine if this is for me? Do I need to go and seek more information, have that personalized assessment, so that I can be confident that doing these exercises are right for me and my body at my stage of pregnancy or postpartum. That's it, ladies. I'm going to stop now because I'll keep going on forever. And I wanted this to be a nice, quick episode. Have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for listening. Come and send me an Instagram message. Next week, we've got an amazing birth story 2-part series. That's it, ladies. Have a fabulous day. We'll catch you soon. Thanks for listening to the Fitness Mama podcast, brought to you by the Fitness Mama freebies found at www.fitnessmama.com/free. So please take a few seconds to leave a review, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and be sure to take a screenshot of this podcast, upload it to your social media, and tag me at FitnessMama so I can give you a shout out too. Until next time, remember, an active pregnancy, confident childbirth, and strong postnatal recovery is something that you deserve. Remember our disclaimer, materials and contents in this podcast are intended as general information only and shouldn't substitute any medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. I'll see you soon.